Jones and Shannon Sharp. It was viral online that they went at it over a conversation that originally started on the Joe and Jada podcast with Jim Jones about influence and Jim Jones being compared to Nas.
We never expected a quiet Tuesday to erupt into a lyrical lightning storm. But the moment Jim Jones opened his mouth on that morning show and coolly proclaimed himself more influential than Nas, the sky over hip-hop grew dark enough to make streetlights flicker at noon. We felt the collective gasp. Older heads clutched vinyl copies of Illmatic like family heirlooms, while newer listeners fired up streams of Ballin' as if rallying a digital army, and we knew we had just stepped into a culture war zone with no neutral ground. We heard keyboards clatter, saw social feeds overheat, and watched hashtags bloom like neon bruises across the timeline. Nas forever, who raised him? We tasted tension in the air, the kind that crackles right before thunder splits open a summer sky. And we leaned in, because chaos always smells like ratings.
These comments then led to Jim Jones being a guest on Shannon Sharp's Nightcap with Ocho Cinco, and they got into it over the comments.
Okay, can we address one thing though?
Go ahead.
Jim Jones has 9 entries in the Billboard 200 with 3 top 10 albums and no number ones, while Nas has 27 entries, 16 top 10 albums, and 6 that have reached number 1 on the Billboard 200.
I'm glad you did that because he addressed those entries in that conversation.
We watched Jim lean back in his chair, sunglasses glinting beneath studio lights, and double down with a grin that dared history to rewrite itself. We understood the audacity. It was the same swagger that let him survive Harlem Blocks and Dipset infighting. But comparing his cultural footprint to Nas, the Queensbridge poet whose verses turned project hallways into scripture, felt like a barroom boast whispered into a mic turned all the way up. We noticed his words weren't just shade. They were lighter fluid splashed across decades of reverence, and every syllable hissed louder once it caught the spark of public opinion. We caught ourselves asking whether he truly believed it or simply wanted the clickbait crown. And that uncertainty fueled the wildfire even fast. We barely had time to process the fallout before 50 Cent waltzed onto Instagram like the petty monarch we all love to eye-roll. We saw him brandish screenshots, caption them with sly venom, and remind the world that no one trolls better than a mogul who once turned mixtape grudges into box office clout. Delusional Jomo only got one song, Ballin', written by Max B, he typed, and we could almost hear his trademark chuckle rattling ice cubes in some high-rise glass. We blinked at claims of secret files, of buried transcripts, of sealed wiretap evidence labeled Individual 1, and we shivered, because in this arena 50 never fires a warning blank. We asked ourselves if he was bluffing, or if there were truly dusty pages in a federal cabinet somewhere, pages that could collapse reputations the way one wrong brick topples a Jenga tower.
I recently saw a clip on Instagram where a young kid was comparing you to Nas and saying that you got
Yeah, that's my young boy.
big
right there.
hits.
He's wild.
Yo, he looked to you. He learned how to wear the BB Simon belt from you. He got his swag, like.
We sensed the generational fault line widen with every meme. We felt teenagers quoting Capo's swagger in TikTok snippets, while middle-aged fans typed out entire Nas verses in comment sections, as if reciting protective incantations. We heard barbershop debates stretch into overtime, streaming numbers spike for everyone named, and rumor mills crank hard enough to squeal. We realized that Jim hadn't just picked a fight with Nas's legacy. He had reopened old beefs like an earthquake, exposing forgotten bones, and 50's grin hinted at fossils he was itching to wave in front of cameras. We smelled opportunity, and in tabloid land, that scent is sweeter than fresh ink. We pivoted to the social chessboard where 50 moves pieces with a cat's patience. We remembered his lighthearted regret tour last year, how he told a trade magazine he wasted energy feuding with Cam and Fat Joe, and we understood that lessons learned can turn ex-enemies into reluctant allies. Yet we also knew that 50's idea of forgiveness comes with a side of surveillance. We pictured him scrolling through decade-old call logs, rewatching grainy backstage footage, ready to drip-feed revelations whenever the algorithm slows down. We recognized the cruelty of anticipation. Once he hinted at those secret files on Jim, the entire fan base became voyeuristic jurors waiting for Exhibit A. We wondered what those transcripts really say, how deep the 9-tray chatter went, and whether the FBI still keeps a dusty folder stamped confidential, because the ink never quite dried on that saga.
Break this down. I admired Nas, but remember Nas' first record, The Barbecue, came out when I was in 11th grade.
Yes.
So Nas was my idol when I was young. Like you did, came to dressing, the wordplay, the music, everything. I was a superior Nas fan. period. I'd never take that away from him. But then as I got in the game, you got to realize that your rivals would be idols, and not to take anything away from that, I developed my own.
We then rewound to the night New York first tasted Betrayal's metallic tang. 2007, Madison Square Garden, G-Unit show lights dancing like police flashers, and out of the haze came Jim Jones, swagger strutting onto a stage where Cameron's flag was supposed to fly solo. We remember jaws dropping as Dipset's internal cracks glowed under the spotlight. We recall Cam later calling the stunt devious, a checkmate moment that proved loyalty can flip quicker than a coin in Midtown breeze. We now replay that memory with fresh suspicion. Did Jim see it as opportunistic rebellion or a pre-planned coup? We can't shake whispers that he might have sabotaged Dipset from within, letting the crew fracture so his own star could blaze unhindered. We picture him backstage that night, maybe hearing his pulse thump like snare hits, telling himself history rewards bold moves, even if brotherhood goes collateral. We examine the meaning of influence, the way jewelers inspect diamonds, turning it under harsh light. Nas carved metaphors into concrete, taught a generation to rhyme social realism with spiritual ache. Jim wrote ad-libs and hustler chic, infused swagger into melody, and built anthems that made club rafters shake. We see how each man echoes in different corners of the culture, and we suspect Jim understands this better than anyone. Claiming dominance over Nas isn't about truth, it's about trending. We watch him feed younger listeners exactly what the algorithm craves, outraged quotables, and enough controversy to binge while scrolling between playlists. We wonder if he's playing 4D marketing, sacrificing critical respect for numeric spikes, and we debate whether that's genius or desperation wearing tinted glasses.
Gravitated towards Nas when I was younger and things like that. It's a whole different generation. We're talking about 94, 93, I was in 11th grade. Nigga, it's 2025. There's a big gap there, you know what I mean? And I want people to understand that, so when Shorty's telling people that, yeah, he's 20-some years old, that goes to show the part of the era that he's in. That
we notice Shannon Sharp sliding into the arena like a sports desk colossus, planting a flag for lyrical purists. On his Nightcap podcast, he leaned forward, muscles flexing beneath tailored fabric, and fired the line that echoed louder than a stadium boo. You can't F with Nas lyrically. We felt the sentence land like a stiff arm. We saw Jim tense and counter with bravado about running laps around legends, insisting he resonates deeper with Gen Z earphones. We caught Chad Ochocinco giggling in the corner while social media referees tallied digital punches. We recognized that when a retired tight end and a rap veteran clash over bars, the spectacle sells itself.
Jim Jones is rapping at a high capacity right now in 2025. I'm on record as saying I think some of the best music that's been coming out of New York in recent years has been from Jim Jones. I haven't seen Nas in that mode. Nas still makes great music at a high level. I just haven't seen Nas in that, let's get active, getting at each other mode.
They're two different artists, though, in two different ways.
We analyze the mechanics of clout economics, how one provocative soundbite can goose stream counts by the millions and stretch a 20-year-old discography into tomorrow's trending topic. We suspect Jim calculated that math before speaking, yet we also detect genuine frustration behind the grin. We remember Dipset's Versa's stumble against the LOX, the booze, the memes, the sting of once unstoppable Harlem swagger eclipsed by Yonkers' precision. We imagine Jim still replaying that night in his head, vowing never again to let nostalgia outshine him, so he swings at Nas, not to belittle, but to wrestle spotlight away from a legacy that refuses to dim. We pivot back to 50 because his silence rarely lingers without purpose. We picture him sitting in some executive suite, phone glowing, holding drafts of posts he hasn't yet hit send on. We remember how he already leaked snippets of wiretapped calls where Jim allegedly ordered a street violation, how he captioned them with sly digs about individual one, and how fans pounced on every breadcrumb. We wonder if more paperwork exists. Court transcripts, sealed affidavits, even private DM screen grabs. And we consider how quickly a well-timed leak could crumble any argument Jim makes about authentic influence. We ponder whether 50 is keeping these receipts as insurance or negotiation chips, waiting for Jim to trip over his own ego one last time before dropping the guillotine.
Me, Jim Jones, myself, gold records, platinum records, gold albums, platinum albums. No, me, Jim Jones. No diplomats, no nobody else. Me, Jim Jones. Check my track record, then check everybody else's track record. Then go to the billboards and check all my entries, then check all them entries and shit like that. And I'm not taking nothing away from nobody, but I hear the comparisons and then be trying to act funny when it comes. No, I've been spanking a lot of this shit.
We circle the Dipset saga again, examining cracks like detectives at a crime scene, lit by backstage LEDs. We picture Cam plotting to heal the group, only to watch Jim hop the barricade for a cameo with the enemy G-Unit, windbreakers billowing like pirate flags. We reflect on Cam's later laughter with 50, how two former rivals can chuckle at memories once sharp enough to draw blood, and we suspect time may dull blades but not the scars beneath. We think of Jewel Santana caught in the middle, of fans who tattooed the diplomat eagle only to see its wings clipped by ego. We ask if Jim's climb to solo glory was worth those burned bridges, or if he sometimes wonders what might have been had he stayed locked in formation.
This kid probably don't have an idea who Nas is. So he grew up on Jim. And I just think these conversations keep happening where it's pitting one generation against the next generation over not appreciating each other.
We explore the rumor that Jim deliberately torpedoed Dipset's cohesion, bribed by larger platforms or driven by personal ambition. We visualize hush-hush meetings in dim lounges, handshake deals promising mainstream hegemony in exchange for an on-stage betrayal. We can't confirm that theory, yet we notice how well the narrative fits his later marketing playbook. Court the loudest controversy, let fallout fuel streams, then shrug with a Harlem smirk and keep stepping. We weigh whether that strategy is sustainable or if it ages about, as well as mid-2000s denim jackets. We drift into social strategy sessions, where Jim's team might be diagramming viral arcs on whiteboards, arrows pointing from Shannon's podcast to Twitter spats to song releases timed for maximum ignition. We overhear imaginary conversations. They'll roast you at first, but attention is attention. Drop the deluxe next Friday. We question whether authenticity survives such calculus or if the algorithm devours nuance the way sharks inhale chum. We note how quickly fan discourse flips from lyrical merit to legal rumors, from studio accolades to federal gossip, and we feel uneasy about a culture that prefers depositions over discographies. We recall the True Life episode 50 subtly referenced, the Queen's rapper teasing he could unleash old street beef ghosts to chase Jim around NYC again. We feel the chill of latent grudges resurfacing, the sense that unresolved business from early mixtape wars could reanimate like zombies whenever someone with enough clout whistles. We wonder if modern hip-hop thrives on memory or menace, and whether influencers step into each new feud knowing there might be real-world stakes lurking behind comment section banter.
So, talk about Jim Jones of 20 years ago, Jim Jones today. Have you noticed anything different in the music industry? Have you tried to do anything different with your sound to keep up with the way the industry is headed?
We glance at Nas, serenely silent through it all, eyes perhaps focused on upcoming tour dates, maybe private studio meditations. We marvel at how silence itself becomes a weapon. Every day, he doesn't respond, adds weight to his throne, letting storms swirl beneath while he watches constellations only lyricists can see. We suspect Jim understands this dynamic too. Baiting Nas isn't just about comparison, it's about dragging a demigod back into mortal mud where social media rules apply. We wonder if Nas will finally stir, drop a bar as precise as a scalpel, and slice through the circus with effortless grace, resetting the hierarchy in under 16 lines. We reflect on how generational divides often mask deeper insecurities. Older fans terrified their golden age might fade, younger ones desperate to crown fresh kings while they still feel ownership. We notice Jim riding that divide like a surfer balancing on a swell. Lean into youth culture, mock legend status, spark outrage, repeat. We ask ourselves whether it's bravery, opportunism, or the natural evolution of an artist refusing to age quietly. We consider our own role feeding the frenzy with every recap, every speculative angle, because drama sells and serenity scrolls poorly.
Where were we?
Why you keep putting Jada into this? Why you keep putting Jada into this? What's wrong with you? What is wrong with you, bro? You type of get caught like, nah, come out, they call us all. Like, why you keep trying to put Jada into this, bro?
We cannot ignore the rumor that 50's secret files contain more than just gang-affiliated phone calls. We've heard whispers of unreleased footage, confidential settlement letters, even a rumored tie to a misfiled RICO doc that never made it to open court. We pursue those murmurs through virtual pathways, collide with impasses, retrace our steps, and yet, the hint of controversy remains. We know 50 is savvy enough to tease without overplaying. He dangles evidence like a cat toy, and the culture bats at it, claws out, begging for full reveals. We suspect that when he finally drops something concrete, it won't be a gentle push. It'll be a grand opening wrecking ball swung in prime time. We peer at Jim's response patterns, swagger layered over subtle defensiveness. We recall him telling Cam and 50 to get off my lane in language way saltier than we'll repeat here, and we detect real fatigue beneath the bravado. We imagine the pressure of carrying multiple decades of reputation, always having to spin new controversies just to keep algorithms spinning your name to the top of trending lists. We acknowledge he remains a survivor. Studio setbacks, crew schisms, industry gatekeeping, even pandemic-era touring chaos didn't silence him. Yet we wonder how many more storms his brand can weather before thunder finally cracks the hull. We drift through fan forums, buzzing about generational loyalty tests. Some users weigh varsity memories of riding the subway with Nas's bars echoing in headphones against newer memories of hitting viral dances to ball in at graduation after parties. We see entire Reddit threads debating whether relevance equals influence, whether streaming digits matter more than Pulitzer-level lyricism, whether shock value outweighs longevity. We realize these questions can't be settled, yet they fuel endless content, which means they're worth their weight in digital gold.
Because it might spark something different in Nas. Nas has been putting out some phenomenal projects with those King's Disease albums, right? Like, you know, but Nas is rapping about Brunch on Sunday, which I love because I enjoy Brunch on Sunday. But he might activate something else in Nas that Nas ain't felt in a while. Like, so somebody calling me out?
Yeah.
You know, some
and I posted
competition.
that in my story. I said Jim know what's going on. He just know that he goes viral as well, and it's all good publicity to him. So
we revisit the possibility that Dipset's demise was orchestrated from the inside. We picture a late-night studio where coughing speakers flicker, Cam frustrated over label politics, Joel's checking stock of his missing jewelry, and Jim quietly texting a number saved in his phone under a pseudonym. The scenario feels cinematic, maybe too dramatic to be exactly true. Yet, in this industry, truth often hides inside exaggeration, like a pearl inside gaudy costume jewelry. We suspect 50 knows this and keeps receipts to set the record straight only when it benefits him most. We zoom out to see the broader economy of scandal. Every time Jim stirs up Nas fandom, streaming services tally more plays. Every meme 50 posts converts to clicks on his liquor line, his television empire, his eventual stadium tour. Nas's silence drives catalog sales, because new listeners revisit old classics to gauge the fuss. We witness an ecosystem where outrage is fertilizer, and every blow-up nourishes bottom lines. We ask ourselves who's truly orchestrating the show, the artists, the audience, or the platforms that monetize every fresh skirmish.
Go back to that 50 Cent post, because I'm going to tell you why 50 is literally is a diabolical genius.
We sense the storm cresting, the moment in every saga when tension hums so loudly we can almost hear wires vibrate. We know 50's next move will decide whether this stays a playful roast or escalates into career-altering catastrophe. We weigh the odds of Jim doubling down again, maybe dropping a diss track aimed at both Nas and 50, maybe releasing selective receipts of his own, maybe apologizing in a plot twist, to pivot into martyr status. We can't predict which path he'll choose, but we do know one misstep could trigger 50 to open the vault, and once federal transcripts hit the timeline, no amount of Harlem swagger can scrub the ink. We toy with hypothetical futures. If 50's files confirm deeper involvement in 9-tray planning, sponsors might vanish quicker than you can refresh a page. If Nas finally responds with surgical bars, Jim's claim of dominance could boomerang into meme humiliation. If Shannon Sharp invites both onto Nightcap for a showdown, we'd witness algorithmic fireworks visible from the International Space Station. We even imagine Cam swooping in to play mediator, turning the whole saga into a reality TV special filmed at an undisclosed location, because who wouldn't stream that? We feel the cliff edge approach, the breathless hush before the encore. We know hip-hop loves redemption arcs almost as much as it loves meltdowns. Jim could shock everyone by dropping a thoughtful apology track featuring Nas, flipping the narrative into unity, or he could choose Scorched Earth, unleashing unreleased Dipset skeletons that drag him into new crossfire. We suspect whichever option earns more headlines will win his vote.
Pull out.
And telling people who the sponsors are. So if they want to harass Cadillac and AT&T, that'll happen.
And once
We pause to consider the human beneath the headlines. Jim Bourne, Joseph Guillermo Jones, juggling family pride, Harlem expectations, and decades of public scrutiny. We think of 50 as Curtis Jackson, who once survived 9 shots and still wakes up every morning planning his next empire. We think of Nasir Jones crafting reflective rhymes in quiet studios, maybe checking his phone, shaking his head at the circus using his name for ticket sales. We acknowledge that behind every viral feud lives a handful of people trying to feed families, keep lights on, maintain sanity while the world dissects their every syllable. Yet we also know the show must go on, because the spotlight pays rent. We lean closer to the final act and feel the temperature drop, the way crowds hush before a heavyweight knockout. We picture 50's finger hovering over the post button, Jim's team refreshing DMs for crisis-control talking points, Nas's camp maybe drafting a calm yet devastating 16 bars. We wonder whether next week will bring apologies or subpoenas, and our curiosity thrums like stage speakers during soundcheck.
This guy,
50's not to be
No, don't.
50's not to be
Fifth. Y'all don't even. Fifth
play around if you want to.
Fifth is different.
And he's on tour.
We drag our focus back to where it all began. One bold sentence from Jim Jones that set a rolling boulder of controversy, smashing through social media gates and crashing into past grudges. We marvel at how quickly old wounds reopened, alliances shifted, and forgotten wiretaps became primetime cliffhangers. We recognize that in our era of endless content, the hottest narrative is always the one that blends nostalgia, suspense, and reputational peril. And this saga checks every box with a Sharpie. We're nearing the edge, and we can practically taste the spark in the air as all three titans orbit the same point of tension. We brace for detonation because we've seen how fast careers can morph once sealed documents surface or unexpected verses drop at midnight. We won't pretend to know the final twist, but we'll be front row when the curtain lifts. We draw one last breath to seal this chapter. We've watched egos collide, legends get compared like sneaker drops, and secret files dangle like swords above reputations. Now we face the biggest question of all. Will Jim Jones survive this escalating war of words? Or is 50 Cent quietly loading revelations set to vaporize his credibility in one viral thrust? And what fireworks might erupt if Nas decides to break his majestic silence and clap back on wax? We can't wait to see your theories light up the comments, and until the next scandal breaks, we're signing off with hearts racing and minds buzzing. Stay bold, stay curious, and remember, the gossip never sleeps.